How's it going, everybody? Ask me anything about politics. I am here to answer any and all of your questions about politics. So if you got questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great response. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know all that much about it, and so I like to make myself available where you can ask me anything that you like, and it can be as simple or as complicated as need be. There's no judgments, there's no debating, there's no roasting. I am just here to give you good faith answers to all of your good faith questions about politics. There was definitely a time when I didn't know anything about politics, and I remember asking all my friends questions about politics, and I was always worried that they were going to think that I was dumb for asking those questions. And so you don't got to worry about that. There's no such thing as a dumb question here on my live stream. So you can ask me anything that you like, and I will do my best to give you a great response that is free of judgments, that is free of debating. Thomas, what is Project 2025? Excellent question. So the Heritage Foundation is a right-wing think tank that puts out these policy prescription memos before a potential Republican administration every single year. And it's basically like things that they think that the government should do. In Trump's first term, the Heritage Foundation published a similar document, though I don't remember what the name of it was, and the Trump administration adhered to about 2/3 of Project 2025, of that version of Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation put out a new document called Project 2025 leading up to the 2024 election, which is basically like a bunch of things that they wanted the Republican president Donald Trump to do when he got into office. Now, there were a lot of very extremely problematic things in that document, like taking over the judiciary, firing non-loyalists, consolidating power, like dictator shit, Schnazi shit, Hitler stuff, that kind of business. Tracking pregnant women so that they can't go to other countries for abortions and things like that. So yeah, and then everybody lost their mind because they were like, "Oh my God, this is crazy! This is completely fucking insane!" And it even got to the point where Donald Trump had to disavow it, even though he knew full well that this is what he was going to do when he got into office. And then a bunch of people in right-wing, info spheres were going out and saying, like, look, he disavowed it, everybody. See, he's not really going to do it. But then everybody else was like myself included, was like, well, he's a liar. He's going to do it. Obviously, he's going to do it. It was written for him. His name appears in that document like over 300 times. There's like, a couple of dozen authors of that are either former employees or administration officials or current employees or administration officials. And then, Trump won the election and all these right-wing ding-dongs came out of the woodwork and said, surprise, Project 2025 actually is our plan. So joke's on you, everybody. And yeah, the joke's on the joke's on us. All right, thank you for your question. I really appreciate that. Bryce says, what's best way to handle best way to handle differing political views in family? It's difficult because family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, like the people that already kind of know you, those are the best relationships for actually doing convincing. And so I think if you come at it from the position of I'm going to own my uncle for believing dumb things, or I'm going to call him a racist or something like that, then you're not going to make any headway. You got to start with the things that you agree on and then kind of try to build from there. And you don't need to take somebody who's a full MAGA and turn them into an AOC progressive. You just got to push the needle a little bit, So even if it's just, don't you think it's weird that we have completely different views on what's going on in the world just because of where we get our news from? That could be a nice place to start. Let's see here. Cullen says, why are y'all still in favor of banning guns now after seeing how authoritarian Trump is? And you say like you all are for banning guns, like that is not a democratic policy position to ban guns. I don't like guns. If I could snap my fingers and get rid of all of them, I would. But I understand that that is not the position of the Democratic Party. I'm more extreme on this issue than most people on the left. So, but why do I still believe that? I mean, I don't know. I don't think that me having a couple of guns is going to be able to stand up to the United States military if they decide that it is more important to them to side with Trump than the Constitution, things like that. Let's see here. Kevin Curran says, when can I afford groceries? Not during the Trump administration, that's for damn sure. Let's see here. Mac 12 Film says, do you believe the Republicans and Democrats are ran by the same higher up person? No, I do not. I believe that money has a lot of influence in our politics. So whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, you are susceptible to various forms of corruption and whatnot. And, depending on which party you are and depending on which politician you are either going to take that money and take that deal or not. I believe that there is a lot of evidence that shows that Republican politicians are a lot worse on this issue. Not only do they take money at a higher rate than Democratic politicians, like there are fewer Democratic politicians with super PACs and things like that, but also the platform of the Republican Party is it's pro-corruption. It's for corruption. They keep on putting things in their, the Trump administration is making moves to make corruption easier, more opaque, more legal, if you will. The right-wing Supreme Court found that a bribe isn't a bribe if you give it to somebody after they do the nice thing for you. If they give it to you before the nice thing that you do for them, then that's a bribe, because that's you're giving them the money, and in exchange they're doing the nice thing for you. But if you give it to them afterwards, that's just a tip. That's just like a nice gift that you're giving them. Ted Cruz also had a case in front of the Supreme Court that he won. So, Ted Cruz, Republican senator, there you go, that said that, if he lent himself money for his own campaign, then a donor could potentially pay him back that loan if and when he wins the election. So let's say that you are you're some sort of lobbyist and you really want to give a whole bunch of money to a politician because you want to make sure that they do things that are good for your business if they get elected, but you don't want to give it to both parties because that's like twice as much money that you got to shell out. So what you do is you find a politician like Ted Cruz, and you basically say to him, like, if you win, I will pay you back all the money that you lent yourself for your campaign. It's basically another version of a bribe. And you see this throughout the Republican platform. Additionally, you're talking about, like, is the same higher up in charge of both parties? I would argue that the billionaire class is in charge of the Republican Party. And there are plenty of people who will say that the parties are the same on that, or that Democrats are more in league with the billionaire class, but all of that is complete bullshit. 75% of all billionaire donations went to the Republican Party in 2024. But aside from that, it is the platform of the Democratic Party to give more money, power, and resources to the top 1%. That's why they're always cutting taxes for the top 1%. And the top 1%, in exchange, helps them to win elections by using all their money and power and shit like that. They believe in cutting regulations for businesses, which helps big corporations and fucks over the little guy. You can see it. You don't have to do all these bank shots. You can just look and see, like, where is all the money coming from and what is all the legislation, who is that benefiting? Let's see here. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So yeah, I'll just give you, since we got a nice little group of people here, I will just, this guy says the left is confused as hell. That's not accurate, Spagooter. Nitty says you're gorgeous. Oh, stop, you're gonna make me blush. All right, so for everybody who's here for the first time, thank you for being here. I answer questions about politics. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I am here for you guys to ask questions, and it doesn't matter. It can be as simple or as complicated as you like. I don't believe in making people feel stupid for not knowing things. There were times in my life when I asked questions about politics and people treated me like, well, you should have learned that in high school or whatever, so I don't do that. You can ask me as simple or as complicated a question as you like. I don't do debates, so if you're just here to, like, roast or own a lib, like, I'm just trying to give you as good faith of an answer as I possibly can. And you don't got to worry about judgments here either, so you don't got to worry about, oh, if I ask this question, he's going to think I'm some sort of squishy cuck libtard, or, oh, if I ask this question, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA fanatic. There's no judgments here, only good faith answers to all good faith questions. Terrence says, what is your opinion on Krasnov? I actually don't know who Krasnov is, sorry. Italiana says, Janet Mills, whoop whoop, we need that from the men sitting there watching. I don't remember what Janet Mills did. E says, why does AIPAC not have to register as a foreign entity? I'm actually not really sure about that. I mean, I don't know if they're technically registered as like as an American lobbying group or not. But yeah, that's a really good question. I actually don't know that one, and I apologize for not having that information for you. KA1 Sir says, not a dumb question. Do you like that we wasted billions of dollars the last 4 years? I think it's really weird that you're saying, like, do I like that we wasted billions of dollars the last 4 years? Like, the U.S. government doesn't always waste billions of dollars. And I don't know, I'm just based on the question, I'm assuming that you think the waste is like things that the Biden administration was doing, like sending aid to Ukraine and things like that. But, you know, foreign aid, foreign assistance accounts for less than 1% of our budget. If you're looking for waste, I would say look at all the tax loopholes that we give to giant corporations, all of the contracts that we give to companies like SpaceX and Tesla. Why don't you look at the military, who has not passed an audit in like the last 4 audits or something like that. But yeah, if you want a specific question about something that the Biden administration spent money on that you think was a waste, like, I'm happy to chat about that. Let's see here. Yeah, Spagooter, you're not asking a question, so you are out of here, my man. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question. Lady of the Lake says, with the current administration, do you honestly think they can get inflation? I'm assuming the rest of it was under control. The answer is no. The Trump administration is not smart about dealing with inflation. Inflation is already up, and they've only been in office for like a little over a month. Tariffs are going to raise prices on consumers. Continued monopolization and cutting of regulations is going to increase cost of consumers and cost of living. He's not doing any of the things that he said he was going to be doing. He said he was going to bring down the costs on day one, and he hasn't. So, you tell me what's going on there. Let's see here. Zio Hoax says, why U.S. support Israel? I mean, so there's like the nice answer for this and like the mean and the nasty answer, because there are definitely people in politics who are not good faith. So the nice answer would be that we felt bad about not taking in Jewish immigrants during World War II. There's a famous case of a boat full of Jewish immigrants that came here for asylum, and we turned them back, and then they went back to Europe, and they got slaughtered during the Holocaust. And so we were like, well, we should have a place where all these Jewish people can go, and it could be a state for themselves, and we will continue to support that place in its right to exist, because, again, we don't think that Jewish people should be the victims of genocide, So that's like a reason, like the good quanti-political reason. The sort of like bad faith reason is that it is easy for America to exert control over Middle Eastern countries that are different from our ideologies if we have a foothold in that region in the form of Israel. And so if we can be allies with that state, then we can, affect more influence over Iran and Iraq and Egypt and, everything else that's kind of like in that neighborhood. At the moment, I do not believe that we should be supporting Israel because they are guilty of committing war crimes against the people of Palestine. Hamas is also guilty of committing war crimes against the people of Israel. So I am against both of the governing bodies of Israel and Palestine, but I am for the peace, prosperity, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of the citizens of both Israel and Palestine. Volti says, does the president have the authority to sign executive orders that stop congressional approved funds from being sent? No. The president cannot sign an executive order that gets rid of the constitutional method by which we pass laws in this country, which I believe is kind of like what you're asking there, Volti. You can't, the executive order is very specific, and, you need kind of like a legal scholar to tell you exactly what can and what can't be. But you can't write an executive order that says, like, the Constitution is null and void. You can't write an executive order that says, like, California doesn't get any senators anymore. Like, there are prescribed methods by which we are able to appropriate funds and create agencies and staff the government. And all of that is very, clear in both precedent and in writing. And so, yeah, like, he can't do that 100%. He cannot do that. Let's see here. Miller says it's called the checks and balance system. Completely agree with that. Danny says, I'm curious from MAGA people, what would Trump have to do in order to lose your support? So I'm not a MAGA person. Maybe you're talking to people in the comments there, Danny. I think that we underestimate the effect that propaganda and misinformation has on people that consistently vote for Republican politicians or Trump. I know you're talking specifically to MAGA, but there are plenty of people that voted for Trump who just bought in to a lot of the cons that were coming out of right-wing political spheres and out of Donald Trump's mouth specifically and whatnot. And this is not to say that those voters are less intelligent than everybody else. But yeah, we just don't know. We underestimate when somebody is getting all of their information from Fox News or from social media and all the people in their lives are conservative. Like, it gets really easy to get lost in that sauce. Now, if you're a hardcore MAGA person, I would venture to guess that there is literally nothing that Trump can do or say that would change your mind about things. You are either so keyed into the right-wing propaganda sphere that nothing, anything that happens to you will just easily be deflected as the fault of Democrats or trans kids or immigrants or brown people or poor people or whatever. Yeah, or you just are in love with Trump and your brain creates all these rationalization mechanisms by which the person that you love and respect and feel can do no wrong, you always find a way to rationalize how bad your life is or your situation is in order to fit that. And we're all susceptible to that. So I've definitely been guilty of this in the past of like throwing shade at Republican voters and calling them stupid and stuff like that. But I'm trying to move away from that because I don't know if it's productive. So I think we all benefit from recognizing that there but for the grace of God go I. That if I had been born in that situation, if the only people in my community were that way, if the social media algorithm that I was plugged into was feeding me this information, then I could probably be tricked into this stuff as well. Alrighty, Top Hand 11 says, what do you think about the state parks and public land and everything going on there? So I'm not fully up on that situation. From what I understand, there are massive budget and staffing cuts that are happening because of Elon Musk and Doge and Trump. And additionally, there was an executive order that Trump signed that said that we could sell all of these public lands to private entities. I think it's a combination of factors. I think there are probably a lot of really shitty people like, oil and coal magnates who want to drill under, Old Faithful and El Cap and stuff like that. I think that there's also like a weird tech billionaire crazy person theory about like building up a new society from the ashes of America, a fully technological society, and they need land in order to build their new utopias and stuff like that. And so because, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel have their hands in the federal government, they're sort of making those lands available so that they can start buying them and start building their dream cities and shit like that. I don't know if any of that's true. I'm just saying that's a theory that I heard. But yeah, I'm pretty confident to say that it is all just grift and con and taking things away from the American people and giving it to the billionaire class so that they can have more money, power, and control over us. Let's see here. Savage says, do you think common sense is dying off? I would love to say that is true, but I mean, if you look at op-eds from any other previous generation of America, like you'll see the same kind of bullshit. You'll see the same kind of singular one-track thinking and, nonsense arguments that, some people are buying and some people aren't. If you listen to, there's a podcast called Ultra about the rise of the ultra-right in America during World War II. It's like the exact same shit. It's the same propaganda that people are falling for. It's the same talking points that people are falling for. I don't think it's a coincidence that the slogan of the American Nazi Party during World War II was not Make America Great Again, was America First, which is another talking point that, Donald Trump mirrors regularly. So yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say that people are becoming dumber or that we're not capable of common sense. I just think that we're always capable of this, and it just, it's whether or not these narratives and information spheres and communities are able to be accessed and weaponized in the way that right-wing people did in the past and are currently doing now. Let's see here. Space Boy says, I voted for Trump because he was in Home Alone 2. That doesn't seem like a really good metric for voting for somebody. Danny said, do you think the SAVE Act will go through? That I don't know if it's going to go through or not. I know that that's what Republicans want. In order to pass that bill, I believe they would have to get around the filibuster because it's not there's certain things you're able to pass without having to worry about the filibuster. but I think that they have to do with the economy and finance and the budget and stuff like that. And I don't believe the SAVE Act falls under that purview. So as long as they maintain the filibuster, then the SAVE Act cannot pass. But I also don't believe that a lawless administration that is grabbing power with both hands, legally and illegally, is going to give a shit about the filibuster. If they want to do the SAVE Act so that we can disenfranchise more voters, then they're going to pass the SAVE Act. Let's see here. Volti over on YouTube says, what would you say to somebody that accuses the government of sending government money to illegal aliens when it doesn't have the money for people who, let's say, were affected by natural disasters? So what I would say, Volti, it's a little, it's kind of a lot of things. You know, the idea that we are sending money to illegal immigrants instead of sending them to, like, hurricane victims, that's just, like, flat out Republican propaganda. Like, there's no accuracy to that story whatsoever. And you can look at statements that were made by the Republican governors of those states basically saying, like, don't believe all this misinformation. FEMA is here. They are doing the work. We can help you if you just come to the aid stations. But, you know, right-wing propaganda was making it more difficult because they were spreading these lies about there not being any assistance. And so people weren't looking for the assistance. And also there was apparently like a roving band of like militia members who were like trying to hunt down FEMA members because they believe that they're part of the deep state or some shit like that. So yeah, that part of the story is not true. Sending money to illegal aliens is also not true. Like I don't even know what they're talking about there. It all just seems like it's part of the same soup of right-wing misinformation. And they always do this. They always say that your tax dollars are being sent or being spent on brown people who do not deserve to be here, because that's like the perfect combination of things to drive somebody who's right-wing completely insane. It's like, you don't deserve this. And there's like a little racism thrown in there as well. And it's my money, you know, like stuff like that. All right, Michael Campisi says, the only thing that matters is a Republican is 100% pro-oligarch. A Democrat is 50-50. I think 50-50 is a little... I don't know. I think it's a little extreme. I think it's probably more like 80-20. Let's see here. Misa says, nobody calls them brown people. Some people call them brown people. Let's see here. Cap says, do you have any comments about Trump coming after the U.S. Postal Service? He did it in his first term. You know, it's a couple of things. It's chaos. They want chaos. They want people to not be able to rely on public institutions because then they can privatize them, which just means more money for rich people at the top 1%. If there's no USPS, then everybody has to do FedEx, and then the guy that owns FedEx makes another couple quadrillion dollars or whatever. All right, let's see here. Glenda says, if we haven't filed our taxes yet, will we get a return? I have no idea. That is a really good question, but they're slashing, you know, staff and budget at the IRS, so who the fuck knows, man? That is a really excellent question. And the fact that we are even asking that, like, we can't trust the government to give us our own money back, is all you need to know about how incompetent, malicious, corrupt, and grifty this current administration is. Savage says, do you think it's possible to pull someone out of their political echo chamber? It is possible, but it's work. And, you know, not a lot of people want to do that work. It's difficult, and it requires a lot of patience and empathy. You know, when what we want to do is just like shake people and tell them like, you're wrong, I'm right, look at this, you're dumb, blah, blah, blah. But that's obviously not productive. So you also want to try not to think about this as like one or nothing. Like, all you got to do is move the needle just a little bit, and you've done as much work as you need to do. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the comments, Alice says, yeah, Americans seems to want to blame everybody for taking their money except the people that are. I mean, that's not a coincidence, you know, that's propaganda. The people who have a lot of money and power have paid a lot of money and have used their influence in order to put these narratives out there because it protects them and it protects their power. Let's see here. Whimsycraft says, if your party condemns fact-checking, that should be your first red flag. I completely agree with that. All right, scrolling up. The Dude Abides says, no, because they didn't send out checks from COVID to people who did not file their taxes. I don't know 100% what you're saying there, Dude Abides. Michael Campisi says, most Republicans aren't pro-oligarch. They're just dumb. You know, here's the thing. So, first of all, you spelt "there" wrong, and so I don't know if you want to do that and also call somebody else dumb at the same time. I appreciate what you're saying here is that some people just don't recognize what they're voting for. But again, like, we should not be calling other voters dumb. You know, there but for the grace of God go I. Republicans do not have a monopoly on getting tricked. There are 8 million Democratic voters who did not show up for the 2024 election because somebody convinced them, somebody conned them into thinking that not voting would be the better option. Let's see here. Michael Campisi says, talking about the politicians, half the Democrats are bought and paid for. Again, I think it's probably like closer to 80-20. McKay says, how do you feel about the abortion debate? I mean, I don't know where the abortion debate is right now. As far as I can tell, Democrats are fighting to restore Roe protections, and Republicans are fighting to nationalize the abortion bans that are happening in red states right now that are literally killing women. And the women that they aren't killing, they're torturing or threatening or taking away their fertility because of them. I think that the country was better when we had the protections for Roe versus Wade. I think that it is a woman's right to choose. And, even if you have moralistic objections to that, like, the system that we have now is just worse. And I don't think that anybody can argue that it's better. Let's see here. Campisi says, when you say 80-20, do you mean 80 are bots or 80 aren't? I mean 80 aren't. There are more good people in government than people think. One of my big, stances that I constantly am getting on my soapbox about is that the Republican Party is worse than most people think, but the Democratic Party is better than most people think. And, I can argue that to the ways from Sunday, but, that's what the whole fucking, that's what these whole lives are about, Jenny says, they think we are propagandized. Everything we tell them, they say about us. Yeah, I mean, where Republican politicians are concerned, every accusation is a confession. Angie Lignacso says, U.S. base shut down by Trump in Greece. How will this affect the U.S. dollar? Why is he doing this? So I don't know about this specific story that you're talking about, Angie, but I can tell you that this fits into the general ethos of going back to a pre-World War II kind of world order where there's no, global alliances, there's no United Nations, and it's basically just every man for themselves. Only the strong survive. Powerful nations get to eat up smaller nations and conquer and be empires and shit like that. And so that's the same. And so, when we have good relationships with other countries, it kind of hurts that, that agenda that they have. They want to get rid of all of these agreements because they want to go back to the chaos and violence of pre-World War II global order. That's why they left the Paris Climate Accords, the World Health Organization. They're trying to get out of the UN. They're trying to get out of NATO. The Obama administration normalized relations with Cuba. They got out of that. They canceled the Iran nuclear deal. All of that stuff falls into that same umbrella. Let's see here. Danny says, do you think they can actually convince people Russia started the war with Ukraine? I mean, they can convince their people that Russia started the war, but I don't think they're going to convince anybody else. Let's see here. Volti said, why would replacing IRS and a traditional tax method with tariffs be a terrible idea? So what tariffs accomplishes, but that a complicated tax structure does not, is that we are able to adjust how much money we take from specific groups of people. So ideally, if you are a poor person, you are spending less in taxes, not just the number, but the percentage of your income on taxes than a rich person. So rich people, they pay a lot in taxes, but it is a much smaller percentage of their net value or annual income than the way that a poor person gets taxed. And if you just do tariffs, then anytime you try to buy something, you're going to be buying that thing, but also, spending X amount extra on that purchase in order to fund the American government. And because, because of the law of sort of like exponential, values, even if a rich person buys a lot more things than a poor person does, they're still going to be spending a lot less money on taxes as a percentage of their, their income or their net value. So yeah, the short version is that if we got rid of income tax and just had tariffs, poor people would be paying more in taxes and rich people would be paying less in taxes. Volti, you got great questions. Excellent work. H says, if RFK goes after SSRIs, won't the farm industry go hard after him so SSRIs could be protected? I actually was talking to a friend of mine about that today because there are some ideological differences between the different psychopaths in the Trump administration and the Republican Party. There are deficit hawks in the Republican Party who are not going to be cool with the $1 trillion tax cut for the top 1% unless they cut Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. The Trump administration is saying they're not going to do those things. RFK wants to take on big pharma and big agriculture, and obviously Trump is not going to want to do that. So why would RFK Jr. go after banning antidepressants if big pharma is going to be spending a ton of money to continue to maintain influence in the Trump administration? And they're not going to do that because they're going to lose out on all that revenue from SSRIs. And I don't know if there's if we can answer that question just yet, because we don't know what they've done yet. We only know what they've said they're going to try to do. So RFK Jr. says he's going after SSRIs, but he hasn't actually tried yet. We don't know what mechanism it's going to be, so it's difficult to sort of like parse out what the possible motivations are there. If I had to guess, I would say that they want people to be more desperate and depressed, because that would increase the chaos and desperation of the nation, which helps authoritarian regimes, because then there's more crazy people out on the street losing their minds, and people are doing more crimes, and people are doing more self-harm and stuff like that, and that just lends itself easier for the kind of local chaos that makes it easy for a president to declare martial law or shit like that. My guess is that if something like that were to happen, that there would be kickbacks in other ways for big pharma. So whatever money you were missing out on selling SSRIs, you will make back in us cutting regulations for you putting new drugs on the market, cutting regulations on how safe and pure your medications need to be, and things of that nature. But yeah, I don't have any faith whatsoever that this administration is doing things just for the good of us. Even if RFK is ideologically believes in getting rid of SSRIs, I believe that the grift is still at the foundation of what he is trying to do. But yeah, again, we're still in the talking phase here, so I'm not really sure. What their plan is, or if they're even going to try. Quentin says, do you think political polarization is a top 3 problem in our country? I don't. I kind of think that political polarization is a symptom of the top 3 problems in the country. And of those top 3 problems, I'm going to go, propaganda, misinformation. It is that stuff that is convincing people that you have less in common with the people on the right than we actually do. And even, you have people on the far left have less in common with the people on the center left than we actually do. I would say that we need to solve the problem of misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, right-wing misinformation and propaganda specifically, the way that social media algorithms can be manipulated in order to push certain narratives that help get Republicans elected and things like that. I think that's the bigger problem. Dr. Bob Fanboy says, where does the Democratic Party go from here? So that's a really interesting question, because everybody has a different opinion. They think that we lost in 2024 because the party went too far to the left. We lost because they went too far to the right. They're not doing enough. They're doing too much. They're doing the right amount of things. They're just not doing it the right way. And if you watch me regularly, you will know that this is another one of my hobby horses, which is that the Democratic Party gets yelled at no matter what they do. It is the reason why all of our politicians sound so robotic and focus grouped, is because they are trying to make everybody happy, because no matter what they do, they get yelled at from somebody. And so what does the Democratic Party do? There are things that I think they should do, but I don't know if that's borne out in any of the polling data. If it was up to me, this would be a much more progressive and young party, and we would move away from both the centrism and the gerontocracy wing of the Democratic Party. But, I'm sure there is some polling out there to suggest that that would be disastrous, and that one of the strengths of the Democratic Party is in how it's a big tent, and we have AOC, and we have, Kristen Sinema's and Joe Manchin's, or at least we used to before they left the party. So where does the Democratic Party go from here? I don't think it matters. I think that we need to address the propaganda machine and the misinformation machine, because no matter what the Democratic Party does, even if they came up with the most perfect messaging campaign that addressed every single issue in this country, it would be chopped up and mushed and rearranged in order to make it seem bad for the 99% of the population. And it would get, the Affordable Care Act Affordable Care Act was passed, and it made it illegal for health insurance companies to discriminate against people for having pre-existing conditions. And how did the American people pay the Democratic Party back for giving them that legislation? They voted almost all of them out of Congress because they were convinced by right-wing propaganda that the Affordable Care Act was bad and that there were death panels in the Affordable Care Act and shit like that. Kamala Harris was campaigning with people like Liz Cheney as if to say, look at how crazy Donald Trump is that even Liz Cheney is joining our campaign. But that move got chopped up and mushed together and then rearranged. And when it went out into the social media sphere, it was the Democratic Party is more in league with the Republican Party than with their own base. So you see how no matter what they do, it gets chopped up and mushed out and reinterpreted into being something terrible. So they can't win. They literally can't win. And they don't have the resources to fight against the people who have so much money like Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and Peter Thiel and all those other fucking psychotic tech billionaires that are now in league with the Republican Party. So the way that we solve that from my perspective is we do the work of correcting those narratives. We talk to people. We talk to our friends, our families, our neighbors, our coworkers, and we just make sure that we are correcting these narratives, and we make sure that the people that we know and love are getting their news from as close to non-biased sources as we can get, to make sure that they're not just getting their news off of social media or right-wing propaganda channels and stuff like that, because the Democratic Party does not have the resources to do this fight without us. We have to be the spokespeople for this ideology, because otherwise, and a spokesperson against the Republican ideology. Let's see here. Tat2 Bill says, LOL, you know what she spent? Do you know what Trump spent and Elon Musk spent and Vladimir Putin? Because I guarantee you it far eclipsed the Democratic Party spending. Let's see here. Volti says, I have lots of questions, LOL. Former Republican waking up to the bill of lies I've been sold. I'm really glad that you're here, Volti, and thank you for asking so many questions. Tyler Brenneman says, do you think some good will come out of Doge? And your opinion on trans women in sports? So Doge, I don't think anything good is going to come out of it. They are talking about getting rid of the penny, which is a policy that I support, because it's just a waste of resources. But I also don't think that it's going to make that big of a difference financially on the margins. But it is a waste, so get rid of the waste. But yeah, what Doge is doing right now has nothing to do with finding abuse or waste. They are just cutting programs that help the little guy, the 99%, and by cutting those programs, they're helping the top 1%. The Consumer Financial Protection Board protects the little guy against the big guy, so Elon Musk wanted to get rid of it. USAID helps poor people in here and in other places. It helps us keep deadly diseases out of here, but they were also investigating Elon Musk, so you got to get rid of that one also. And as far how do I feel about trans women in sports? I gotta be honest, I don't care. I feel as though this is probably a person-to-person issue. There are plenty of trans women in sports who are not breaking records. They are just regular-ass athletes just like everybody else. You know who also has an unfair advantage is Shaq. He's half Goliath, and yet we still let him play against humans. That doesn't seem fair to me. So yeah, it is obviously an issue that has been weaponized by the right in order to, inflame their base. And, it works. It's part of their culture war. And, it's been very effective so far. But yeah, it affects such a small number of people, and it doesn't do the thing that other people say it's going to do. It doesn't incentivize men to go through the extremely laborious procedure of turning themselves into a woman using surgery and, hormone manipulation and things like that, so that they can be the number one female track star. That just doesn't track for me. If we want to get rid of the whole problem, then just stop having sex sports leagues. Just have it be whoever's the best gets to join League A, and then whoever's the second best joins League B, and then whoever lands wherever, that's where we go. All right, let's see here. Mad Cat Monkey says that half Goliath was hilarious. Thank you very much, Mad Cat Monkey. I appreciate that. Mac Daddy Shrimp 69 says, would you consider information that challenges your beliefs? I absolutely do. I welcome it. Like every human being, I have a bias against things that don't confirm my priors, but I do my best. I do like little bias checks every now and again where I'm just like, every once in a while I'll be laying in bed at night thinking about things that I said on the live and just being like, am I right about this? Am I right about that? And so I dig into things. I do, every human being is biased in this way, but I do try my best to let in the alternate information and see if it changes my attitudes at all. And I'll tell you one way that I recently took in new information and completely changed my beliefs was in going hard against Republican voters. Like, I used to go hard and call them all idiots and say that they were all stupid because they weren't educated and they're all racist and shit like that. And in reading new information about who these people are and how you actually convince people, like, my thinking completely changed on that. Michael Campisi says, any poor person who believes in trickle-down economics and billionaire tax breaks is dumb. Again, Michael, please just don't call people dumb, man. Lots of people get tricked. Republicans get tricked. Democrats get tricked. Everybody is susceptible to propaganda and misinformation. Let's see here. Laida Caraballo, 295, says, is military in Puerto Rico considered DEI? I am not sure what you're asking there, I gotta be honest. Is the fact that the military is in Puerto Rico considered DEI? I'm not really sure what the question means. Aiden says, men are born with a general advantage. I think statistically that is true, but there are plenty of women who are better athletes than men, and so, if I, a natural-born man, was in a gender-neutral tennis league, I would still get my ass kicked by like 99% of the women in that league. So, yeah, it all comes out. It all comes out in the wash, my man. Chris, whole bunch of numbers, says, one of my favorite quotes I've seen lately is, "You're not wrong. You were just lied to." Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And yeah, I'm sorry for everybody that falls for the propaganda. I'm sorry that everybody that falls for the lies. It fucking sucks. It's rough out there. Let's see here. Noodlin says, the fact that we're even talking about trans people in sports is embarrassing. There's like under 20. Yeah, and there's also like way bigger issues, in the world. As we're talking about trans women when there's a literal coup happening by fucking Nazis. Like, it seems like a bigger issue to me. Jose says, Serena Williams would kick your ass. Yeah, her and everybody else, man. There's a lot of female tennis players who's so not famous that you don't even know who they are because they're like the 200th best in the world, would still kick my ass. Andrew Whaley says, you have the responsibility to do your own research, but not everybody has the means to do their own research. I'm a stand-up comedian. I've got a lot of free time, and so I am able to read like all these different news sources and check my biases and listen to interesting, nonfiction podcasts and read nonfiction political books and stuff like that. And so, but not everybody has the power to do that. Some people are just struggling to get by. They're working, 70 hours a week at 3 different jobs paying minimum wage, and they got kids they got to take care of. And, they're getting their fucking necks stomped on by the fucking billionaire class. And the one place that they can go to sort of like unwind is telling them that the reason why they are struggling so much is liberals and trans people and Mexicans. And, it is very difficult to fight your way out of those information spheres if you do not have the time, the money, the energy, the education, the community. I believe in practicing radical empathy. Many times I fail at it, but I try my best to recognize but for the grace of God go I. It is not hard for our situations to change in a way that we are suddenly doing the things that we thought were only the things that dumb people did. Let's see here. MAGA Versaverse says, what are your thoughts on the former KGB defector who claims Trump is Krasnov the spy? I have believed for a very long time that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. It makes perfect sense, just based on all the things that they have said and all the things that they have done. They govern America as though they are working for the government of Russia. There is plenty of evidence of collusion in the Mueller report, even though Mueller said that there was not enough evidence to actually bring a case against them. And the fact that they are guilty of obstruction of justice for destroying evidence is probably more evidence that the evidence that they were destroying was the evidence that Mueller needed to bring that case. But yeah, the people who want to argue this are the same people that split hairs about who's a racist and who's not a racist and who's a Schnazi and who's not a Schnazi. So yeah, the people who don't believe it are still not going to believe it. The people who believe it are still going to believe it, in my opinion. But yeah, it's obvious to me that he is. Like, why the fuck else would we be welcoming Russia back into the G8 right now and giving them everything that they fucking want in regards to Ukraine? Let's see here. Quick double tap over on Twitch says, free time, huh? Interesting. I wonder if you can incorporate this in your act. People, when they hear things, it doesn't matter if one person or many people. Let's see here. Inferring the popularity of an opinion from its familiarity or a repetitive voice can sound like a chorus. Oh, that's really interesting. Quick double tap. Yeah, I mean, I definitely talk about politics in my stand-up, but I also talk about not politics, just so that people have like a nice... You know, you gotta have your amuse-bouches. You gotta have your palate cleansers in between. Volti over on YouTube says, what was Biden's immigration app and what does it do? And what would you say if a Republican were to say that it allowed anyone to apply as an asylum seeker and come into the country? This administration seems to be coming up with lots of creative solutions to avoid just taxing the ultra-rich. So yeah, about that. I mean, that the entire ethos of the Republican Party is accumulate power and wealth and cut taxes for the wealthy. It's trickle-down economics over and over again. So yeah, all of their creative solutions are just going to be fucking over the poor, the middle class, the working class, etc. Now, as far as like what the app did specifically, that I don't know. I only know that it was helping people come to this country the right way, the way that every right-wing voter says, like, just come here the right way. Like, we don't care if you want to be a citizen, like, we'll let you be a citizen, but do it the right way, do it the correct way. So what happens when Trump gets into office, both the first term and this term, is he cuts legal ways to get into this country, and he makes it harder for people to become citizens unless you are extremely rich. So right now, if you are not a rich person, it is very, very difficult, maybe even impossible, to become a citizen the right way. So just like in the first administration, Trump is right now just increasing illegal immigration because he has made it impossible for people to do this, quote unquote, correctly. So yeah, and what would you say if a Republican were to say it allowed anyone to apply as an asylum seeker? I would just say that the asylum process is one of the most well-vetted and arduous processes that we have available to us. The reason why it takes so long for people to wait for their turn in asylum court is because the Republicans have defunded that side of immigration policy in favor of giving more money to enforcement. They want to hire more border guards instead of hiring more judges and lawyers to help go through everybody that's seeking asylum. It's the Republican playbook. All right, let's see here. So we're at about, where are we at right now? How long have I been streaming for? I love my usual setup, so I can't find the timer on this thing. I'll probably call it a little bit. I'll probably call it soon, just because I'm on the road right now and I'm very tired from traveling and doing stand-up. So I'll do my outro, but I always do final questions after the outro, so please stick around for after the outro for other questions that you might want to have answered. I want to thank everybody for being here, for asking all your great questions. I love doing these lives, and I love the fact that you guys are here asking the questions, and I'm really happy that we could all be a part of these conversations. If you can do the free kind of support, I really appreciate that. That's liking and sharing and telling everybody how great my live streams are and coming to check them out time and time again and going to my website and stuff like that. There's also financial ways that you can support, but we are all suffering through the cost of living crisis, so if you can't afford to do those, you will not get any shade or ridicule from me. But I have a Patreon that you can find on my website, jaredbernstein.com, and I have a store on my website, jaredbernstein.com/store. You can also send gifts here on TikTok and on Twitch, and I don't know if on YouTube, but this probably is probably available there as well. My normal streaming schedule is normally Tuesday through Friday, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm on the road doing stand-up for the next 2 weeks, so it's going to be much more sporadic and erratic and so you just kind of have to keep your eyes peeled, I guess. So yeah, throw me a follow if you want a notification for when I'm on here. Let's see here. Anything else? If you had a question that I was not able to get to on this live stream, you can email me through my website, jarrettbranstein.com, but also my DMs are open, so you can hit me up that way. And yeah, just lastly, I hope that you all are here to do the work of trying to save the country from this authoritarian fucking Gilead nightmare that we are in. We all have to do the work. We are the only ones that can save us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So go out and talk to people, do the work, assist great organizations like Indivisible and Run for Something and Vote Save America. If we all do a little bit of work, then nobody has to do a lot of work. All right, let's get to some final questions here. Pyro, good to see you again. Thank you for being here. I hope the tour is going well and that you're able to get some rest. Take care of yourself. Damned if you don't show up. Damned if you do show up like they say you want them to. Yeah, for real. Let's see here. Worst case scenario, if the current regime continues down the path it seems to be taking and the U.S. becomes a full-fledged fascist dictatorship, what can be done then? That's an excellent question, Mad Cat Monkey. So worst case scenario, if the current regime continues down the path it seems to be taking and the USA becomes a full-fledged fascist dictatorship, what can be done? So fascist dictatorships can happen from democracies, but they can also go back to democracies. It's hard work. It's difficult, but it can be done. The first thing is we got to recognize that it's possible to be hopeful. Like the people that are in charge want us to be despondent. They want us to think that it's game over. And so send a giant fuck you to those guys by not being despondent and by doing the work. It's like fucking Elon Musk wants me to think that resistance is futile. Well, you can fucking suck my butthole, you weird ass dork. That's number one. Number two is it has to do with specific people doing the right thing and giant groups of people doing the right thing. So if you listen to this podcast Ultra about the fall of the ultra right wing in America during World War II, because we were very close to succumbing to Nazi propaganda in World War II. It was right there. But there are a handful of people who did the right thing and were able to stop it. You know, a judge here, a lawyer there, a senator there. We need to make sure that we are talking to people so that there are more of those people knowing that we support them if they do those things. But then there's also protesting and striking and boycotting. Like those things have an impact as well. We know that political pressure is a thing. I am extremely heartened by those people. I'm seeing all these great town halls with Republican leaders. Fucking keep your foot on the gas, pedal to the metal. Just because you see somebody yelling at a Republican senator or a Republican House member does not mean that you should also not yell at a Republican senator or a Republican House member. Like, double the efforts, guys. Like get out there and build on this progress, you know? Because that stuff means something also. But the most important thing is just voting. You know, like they can do whatever they want. They can try to rig the elections, they can try to voter suppress, they can try to do all of that business. But we are the ones that ultimately have a say. So we need to do whatever is the version of voting that is available to us when it happens. And if it's rigged or if it's shitty or whatever, we need to have put out such an effort that we know that we got the votes. And, you know, maybe there's somebody who can create like a blockchain thing where everybody can log their votes so we can double check against the paper ballots. Local election officials are really great on this. Like if you've got a Democrat who is your Secretary of State or something like that, you can generally, you know, consider your vote tallies to be safe and fair. But yeah, you know, the reason why we have our voting system broken up into like all these various districts and stuff like that is because it makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot harder to rig if it's broken up like that. So we have like different channels that we know are going to be safe. But yeah, we just got to do the work, guys. And yeah, the more people doing the work, the less work we all have to do. Let's see here. EC94 says not going to watch the press conference with Macron. No, I mean, I don't have time to be fully enmeshed in foreign politics the way that I'm enmeshed in American politics. I listen to Pod Save the World, and that's pretty much the extent of it. I just, you know, those guys seem pretty smart. I just listen to what they say. Quick Double Tap says, what do you think of the possibility of economic crash in the next 30 days? I don't know. I am much more confident that there is going to be, like, market and financial chaos than I would be if this was a Democratic administration, but you just never know what's going to happen with that shit. And Trump threatens tariffs, then the market crashes, and the tariffs go away, and then the market goes right back up to where it was. So it's like, I don't know. Trump, for all, part of his ego is in thinking that the markets are tied to how good of a job he's doing as president, and that is why during COVID he was telling everybody, go buy shit, COVID's not a big deal, don't worry about it, because he was trying to keep the market up. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were like weird, extra legal or aggressive like sledgehammer type tactics that they used just to prop up the market, even if it was failing because of his disastrous policies. So yeah, I don't know. It's a whirlwind. It's this giant machine with a million different little parts moving all in different directions. So yeah, you can ask 10 different economists and get 10 different answers. But all the economists basically agree on one thing, which is like what he's doing is not the move. That's the short version. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for the questions and everything. I will see you guys the next time I can get a chance to do this live while I'm on the road. If you want to come check out me doing stand-up, my tour dates are on my website, jarrettberenstein.com, and hopefully I'll be able to itch out another hour or so to do a couple of lives while I am here on the road. All right, take care, everybody. Have a great Monday. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. 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 Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.